I like it. You are listening to the Schwartz & Associates Injury Lawyers Legal Power Hour. Patrick Wooten, Michael Traylor, and on the telephone, Richard Schwartz on this Monday, February 3rd. So good morning to you, gentlemen. How are you doing, as I use that term loosely?
Good morning. Yeah, good morning or the loosely?
I'll leave that up.
I think it was the gentleman comment. Yeah.
I'll leave that up to your own hypothesis as to what term I was using loosely. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So
we're doing good. How about you? I hope everyone had a good weekend.
It did. It was a Chamber of Commerce weather weekend here in Mississippi, so it was great. So loved it. Able to do some things outside. Did some work on the laptop. The joy or the curse of being able to VPN into the office. So sat at the living room table and did some work there.
That's what you called watching the Grammys, huh? Do a little work, little research.
Did not watch that. That is not one of the award shows that's on my list.
I thought that dress was a class action lawsuit.
We talked about that off air because I haven't seen it, but I've heard, which I'm assuming you're talking about Kanye West's wife, and the dress or lack thereof, I guess would be the better way to describe that. I think it's Michael's screensaver now, maybe.
I'll neither admit or deny that I know what you're talking about.
That's right. So, but yeah, I am not an award. I cannot tell you if there's any award show that I actually watch on TV. I'm not an award show person.
Yeah, I'm not either. I don't think there's much that really interests me in that regard. Too much pomp and circumstance going on. Too longer really than a football game these days to watch any of the shows and make it all the way through. So
yeah, exactly. Because you've got the Oscars, I think it's the Oscars coming up next month. I doubt I've probably seen hardly any of those movies. You're the movie guy, Richard, and there's probably a lot of them you haven't seen for the Oscars.
I think the last show, I'll tell you how long it's been, the last award show I saw, Mom's Mabley was a presenter. That'll tell you how long it's been.
That is funny. So, it's the first Monday of February. Hard to believe we've already raced through 1 month of the calendar year. So, in my mind, you get to February, which means it is Girl Scout cookie time. So, it's a good time of the year. So, we would love for people to chime in on the C Spire text line 601-879-4395. Talk about what's your favorite Girl Scout cookie, or you can give us a call at 888-808-8637. I actually placed my order over the weekend because one of our team members I saw sent out an email, which I was excited about, that we have someone who we can support in the firm whose daughter is selling Girl Scout cookies. So are you a Girl Scout cookie person, Mike?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
What's your fave?
I don't know the names, but just the basic shortbread. Whatever that is, the one that has the Girl Scout emblem on it.
I think trefoil maybe?
I don't know. Just whatever the basic one is, and then the one that has like the peanut butter inside with the chocolate.
Tag-along. That's a tag-along.
That one.
Yeah, tag-along is solid. So, are you a Girl Scout cookie person, Richard?
Yeah, I like any cookies.
Yeah.
I mean, Girl Scouts, the peanut butter ones, I haven't gotten them in a while, but peanut butter is the ones I usually go for.
Yeah, I do. Tag-alongs are great. Of course, Thin Mints, but the key to it, which is the mint one, but you have to store it in your freezer. The key is you store it in your freezer, and it's better cold. And then I ordered one box of the Samoas. That's the one with chocolate and coconut, and like one box of those is plenty, but you got to get one of those.
Yeah, so those are on your favorite list?
Yes.
Yeah. Those are the two, the mint and the one with the coconut, bottom of the list.
Really?
Yeah, not a fan of chocolate and mint combination.
So like a York peppermint patty doesn't do it.
Oh man, I'll eat the whole box of those Andes.
I've got a box in my refrigerator.
Yeah, I'll eat every one of them. That's the problem.
Yeah, the little rectangular green foil. It is the best.
No, something's wrong with y'all.
No,
I'm like you. I like the Samoas and I like the Thin Mints the best. It's not even a close second on those two.
Now I do. Tag-alongs are good. It's funny. I ordered more boxes of tag-alongs this year than I did of Thin Mints because I happened to be going through our freezer about a month ago and found 2 boxes of Thin Mints from last year's Girl Scout cookie, and they're still good because they've been sitting in the freezer. So
no, they were never good to start.
They were always good to start. So they are solid. Chocolate and mint is outstanding.
I could be paid in Thin Mints.
Yeah.
At some point.
So here's one that said, Caramel Delight is the best Girl Scout cookie ever. He said he thinks they changed the name of it. Because I don't know the name. That one doesn't register.
And is there another word in the English language that gets pronounced in so many different ways than caramel, whatever it is? Yeah, I mean, like everybody has a different way of saying it.
Well, that I guess if you could get in the whole pecan, you could go down that road. That could be a whole show one day we do, or just words with various pronunciations.
See, they got the pecan sandies, as they call them.
Yep.
Yeah, we bring my wife in here on the caramel. She makes fun of me every time I say it. So,
because what'd she say? Caramel?
I don't know. I can't. I don't ever hear her say the word.
Yeah. So, because I think mine varies how I say it, and I do laugh. Got the text and it says, "Fire Michael for the blasphemous take on Thin Mints."
Hey, I'm just keeping it real, right? We're giving opinions here. I'm gonna stand by it.
We do an annual review in the summertime, so we'll duly note that on the performance evaluation there, so that you're not a mint person.
No, mint's fine. Mint and chocolate, no.
But that's how you eat mint.
No,
is mint and chocolate.
He works better by himself, right? He's not a team guy.
That's right. He loves. Yeah, that's why he does workers' comp. Is he likes to be a party of one.
That's right.
That's right, for sure. But that is just wild, interesting. So learn something about you today. But Michael Traylor is here. So great background. Been with us for a number of years. A fabulous workers' comp attorney, and was a workers' comp adjuster, right? Before you saw the light and went to law school and decided to actually help people versus and retire that deny stamp. But you've got great experience to be able to talk about workers' comp that we will absolutely get to in the second segment and the third segment. So, folks, get your workers' comp questions ready because it's an interesting aspect of the law, area of the law, because it's so created by the legislature, and there's some specific things folks need to know to be able to have a workers' comp claim that's out there. So we'll pivot in the last couple minutes here of this first segment. The Super Bowl is coming up. So it's next Sunday, probably the Super Bowl I am least interested in my adult life, and I love sports. Everyone who knows me knows I am a sports fanatic, but I really do not care about either team that is in this Super Bowl at all.
Yeah, I'm right there with
that's interesting because our Super Bowl ad comes on.
No.
And you need to watch it.
No, I'm excited about our Super Bowl ad, which will be the last break.
I don't know. I haven't seen it yet. Have you seen it yet?
I have seen it. They're 95% of the way there. So they are.
What they've done, so I can look at it.
Yeah, they're making.
I haven't even looked at it.
Making.
It to me.
I will making good progress. But yeah, last break before the halftime show. So right at the end of the second quarter, when you're going into the halftime show, is where our commercial runs, which will be good.
Is it funny?
It is good. I think they've done a good job with it. We don't want to give away too much, but they have done a good job with it and kind of the vibe I think we were going for in shooting that spot. So I hope folks will like it and will put a smile on their face.
You're not Michael Buffer this go around, are you?
I'm not Michael Buffer this go around. It is not. It is not a wrestling spot. That was last year. Richard had to get off the steroids. After shooting that spot last year, so he got off the juice.
Put on a little too much weight.
That's right. So we went a different angle.
Start hollering at everybody, lifting everything around the office.
That's right.
This weekend, that reminds me, coincidentally, I flipping through the TV and I saw that Spaceballs was on. Flipped it on there right when they're starting to fight with the Schwartz.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Like, man, I remember that Super Bowl ad.
That's
that was
right.
my favorite.
That is one of the best Super Bowl commercials we've ever done. But I think this year's is going to be fun, and I do think people will enjoy it for sure. And we hope they'll chime in on social media when they see it and let us know, because those are always enjoyable. We go and it was a bunch of us this year. It's not just Richard and I. So there's a couple others from the firm as well. So I think it'll be
And people don't realize how much time it takes to make those commercials. They take all day or days.
Yes.
We did one, I think, the one in Los Angeles, I think it took 20 hours straight.
Yeah, you did. That was May the Schwartz be with you, and you all were on the set.
20 hours straight.
Yep.
20 hours straight.
Yeah, 20 hours on the set. I mean, we were on the set about 13 hours for the spot this year that will come out.
Yeah.
So pretty exciting. So looking forward to it. We are through the first segment on the Schwartz & Associates Injury Lawyers Legal Power Hour. Again, feel free to chime in on the C Spire text line 601-879-4395, and we'll be right back. Welcome back to the Schwartz & Associates Injury Lawyers Legal Power Hour as Michael battles the microphone in front of him. This is pretty
it's like
hilarious.
a cobra he's trying to handle.
He's going to have to hold the microphone up with stand with one hand.
I think I was jamming too hard to Collective Soul there.
That's exactly right. So, well, here's some interesting research. This is why you want to hire Schwartz & Associates, because if you give us a topic, we're going to dive into it. And we have done some investigative research and have figured out caramel delights are the same thing as Samoas, according to the Girl Scout cookie website. Additionally, tagalongs, which are Michael and Richard's favorite and my number 2 cookie, are also known in certain parts of the country as peanut butter patties. So there you go, folks. So Caramel Delights have just been rebranded Samoas, and I guess the peanut butter patties, the more common name now is tagalongs. So there is your...
people learn so many wonderful things from the show, don't they?
I mean, correct.
They're listening.
Think about it. Someone could be on Jeopardy in the very near future, and this could be one of the questions. We could be helping people win thousands of dollars.
Or make great choices. There could be a Girl Scout at the door right now.
That's exactly
to the show,
right.
like, that's the one.
That's right.
The one I wanted.
You're going to know. And then just the other thing I will throw out there for you, because if you look at the Girl Scout cookie website, they actually show a total of 12 cookies on the website, but not all cookies are available in every geographic area. That I know from my wife when she led a troop for our daughters. So, you can't get all 12 varieties of these cookies, I believe, in Mississippi, that they somewhat geographically assign where the, cookies are divvied out. But there you go. Interesting. If you love a good cookie, go support a good cause. As we talked about before the break, and you can chime in on the SuperTalk call line at 888-808-8637. Michael is an outstanding Mississippi workers' compensation attorney for us, and so hurt on the job. That's, I guess, most people just say workers' comp, think of hurt on the job, but man, there are a lot of different I's and T's that have to be dotted and crossed to make sure someone is able to get the benefits they are entitled to. So what would be the pieces of advice, 3-4 pieces of advice you have for somebody when they're hurt on the job to make sure that they do what they have to do so we can get them the benefits they're entitled?
Yeah, absolutely. So, the first thing, if you're hurt on the job, that you always want to make sure that you do is that you properly and timely report that claim to one of your supervisors or managers. That's one of the problems we see very often is that, somebody gets hurt, maybe they're hurt severely, taking an ambulance off to treatment or something like that, and they could have been on an off-site working, and the employer just doesn't know about it. Or maybe it's something minor, and they don't treat for a couple of days because they're trying to see if it'll just pass, and they don't report it. Well, that can kind of put your claim behind if you don't do that. So first thing, you want to always timely report your injury to one of your supervisors. Second, again, treatment. You want to go to the doctor. You want to be able to tell them exactly what you hurt, how you did it. Best you can, give them the details on that. The doctor's office, they're only going to put so much in their report, but just make sure you tell them, hey, I did hurt myself at work doing this. Because later on, if we have to go get those records because an insurance company's trying to deny your claim, if we can pull those records and show that you reported a work injury, well, obviously that's going to help. So that's number 2. And then I'd say number 3, you just want to do a good job of, best you can, keeping your employer advised of your status. And that doesn't mean you have to tell them everything that's going on, but hey, if the doctor takes you off work, get that work excuse and get it to them. Follow-up appointment in 3 or 4 weeks, get that work excuse and get it to them. And that's going to hopefully ensure that your benefits are paid to you and paid to you timely. So I would say those are probably, top 3 things just to be mindful of from the get-go.
Okay. I'm going to follow up on those, but I know we have a caller. So good morning. Welcome to the show.
We got Bob in Jackson.
Hey,
Workman's comp question.
All right. Thanks, Bob. We appreciate you listening.
Hey guys. Thanks for having me. Hey, Richie, Jackson Dart did a wonderful job at Senior Bowl, and I was so proud of the kid at the end, caught the ball for a touchdown for the American side. The kid's brother, Tiger, was killed in the Bourbon Street terrorist attack. And so I was real proud of that young man. He did a great job. Hey, guys, today my question is for y'all. It's a workman's comp question. Can you have a workman's comp claim and a personal injury claim on the same case involving workman's comp? And, Richie, my other question was to you, was the airplane collision up in Washington, D.C., what were your thoughts on it? And is there damages? Who would pay damages for that claim, that case?
Yeah. You want to answer it first, Michael, about workers' comp?
Yeah, I will. And I saw Jackson Dart do some good things this weekend, or over the whole week, really, too. So that was impressive to see. We hope that wish him well in the draft coming up.
I think he went up to the first round. I think he's a first rounder now. I think he made it.
Close. I'd say there's a chance. I think second round's probably more likely, but that would be great if he did. Wouldn't mind seeing him, well, as a Saints fan, wouldn't mind seeing him down there. But yeah,
you got to get a coach first.
That's right. We do. We got to get a coach before we got any players probably want to be coming there. So, but Bob, just to get to your question on the work comp personal injury, can you have both in one incident? And the answer is yes, you can, and that is a common occurrence. One way that one probably most common way is if you get hurt on the job while driving a vehicle, and it's somebody else's fault in that accident. That's probably the most common that we see. You're at work, so if you were injured in that car wreck, it's a work injury, and if somebody else caused that wreck, then they're liable also for your personal injury. So that is a situation that can be pretty, can be challenging at times because, number one, you want workers' comp to start paying all the bills. And then when you ultimately are going to go against the liability carrier in the personal injury claim, you want to be able to, prove to them what your injuries were, how much the insurance company had to pay in bills. And ultimately, workers' comp, when you go to recover from the personal injury liability, is going to say, hey, we want some of our money back. That's called subrogation, and they have a right to do that. But so there's a lot of challenges that you face when you're walking through that chaos, and that's absolutely a situation where, I recommend to people you probably want to get an attorney involved in that situation, just because there's so many different aspects. So, but yes.
Let me throw this curveball. We're both coming to the radio show today, and I run into the back of you. So we're co-employees together. This is a work-related event, so we'd have a workers' comp. Could you sue me, my liability coverage, even though we're co-employees?
So now we're getting into a really difficult situation. Number one, are we both on the job at this point? I would say yes, probably so, because we're doing something to benefit the firm. But now you're being injured by a coworker, and typically, let's just remove the car accident component from that. If you were at work and you were injured by a coworker there, you would not have a separate liability claim against that coworker in most circumstances. If they intentionally tried to harm you, maybe so, but in that situation, it may not be a work comp claim. So if that were to happen, getting a little nuanced on that one, I'd say most likely not. You're not going to be able to go against your coworker. But again, that's one of those reasons where you would need to probably reach out for some legal assistance in there.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I think you can go after the insurance on the vehicle because the vehicle is what's covered, not the driver. So you might be able to make some liability recovery from the vehicle, I would think. Wouldn't you think, Patrick?
I mean, it's way we would try.
Right.
I mean, again, at the end of the day, you're always going to try and then force them to, if they wanted to deny the claim because they're arguing that it's workers' comp and we're co-employees, so that becomes your exclusive remedy. I mean, at the end of the day, we're always going to try to push the envelope and make the recovery that we can, and you're going to force the insurance company to be able to defend their position is what you would do.
Right.
Traditionally what we like is, and I don't wish any ill will, but if Michael had been driving here today and some just random third party ran in the back of him, it's simple, it's clear, it's comp plus a third party claim.
Right.
It's a little different in the other circumstance, but we would absolutely try for sure.
Yep. And those situations are always fact intensive, especially when you got a third party involved. So it really comes down to the specifics of them, and we're always here to help in those situations.
Yep. You are listening to the Schwartz and Associates Injury Lawyers Legal Power Hour, and we'll be right back. But you are listening to the Schwartz and Associates Injury Lawyers Legal Power Hour. You can give us a call like Bob did in the prior segment at 888-808-8637, or shoot us a text on the C Spire text line 601-879-4395. Can be a workers' comp claim, car wreck question, can be a slip and fall. You name it, y'all do a great job of asking us questions that take us back to law school days a lot of times, in which we try to answer questions that are out there. I wanted to go back, yesterday was Groundhog Day. An underrated movie. That is a really good movie, and good old Puxatawny Phil saw his shadow, which says 6 more weeks of winter. What intrigued me was 50,000 people showed up to hear the decree as to whether he saw his shadow or didn't see his shadow. What is some odd, unique, quirky kind of event like that, you've got that you would love to have on your bucket list? Like, going to see the groundhog would not be on my bucket list.
Yeah, that's way down the list. That's down there with Thin Mints.
Now, is it above Thin Mints or below Thin?
Cookie probably will put it a little above the groundhog.
A little above the groundhog.
Especially when he's bringing bad news.
That's right.
I think he did this weekend.
That's right. 6 more weeks of winter, although we're in the 70s here this week.
That's winter in Mississippi, huh?
That's right. So is there a quirky event, Richard, that you'd be interested in?
Yeah, I'm back on. I want to answer the rest of Bob's question real quick and then bring up one thing up. I don't think it's been determined yet who's at fault. We know someone's at fault for the accident. There's immunity questions, and we're talking about the air crash incident with the helicopter. There's some immunity questions. There's going to be whether the governor has immunity, whether who has immunity, a government agency. Is there going to be gross negligence? There's probably more likely than not going to be a government fund set up to compensate everyone. I hope that's what happens. But there are some issues that still have to be determined. And the other thing we want to talk about before we get off the air is that we're looking for independent pharmacies.
Mm-hmm.
We think that they have a tremendous claim. There's an allegation of conspiracy between the PBMs, the pharmaceutical companies, and major companies like Walgreens and CVS to try to run small independent pharmacies out of business. And what was happening is that the reimbursement plans for medications for Walgreens and CVS was much, much higher, like 30-something percent versus 7% for independent pharmacists. And as a result, independent pharmacists couldn't write certain prescriptions because they would lose money. And they've been losing money. And it's conspiracy, in my opinion, or potentially, to run these small pharmacists out of business. And so they have claims. And because it's potentially fraud, and because that means you could go back 7 years in lost income, could be punitive damages, could be, and the actual damages on the clients we have are a lot larger than people even imagine. So I think if you're an independent pharmacist, we do it all on contingency fee. You don't pay us anything unless we get money for you. I think it's definitely worth your time to give us a call at 601-9 and all 8s or 662-908s, and let's represent you and get you paid back the money that you were wrongfully taken.
Yep, and those claims are just starting, so we are literally in the infancy with regard to those claims. So you could jump on the legal train early, but those are definitely going to be some interesting claims and ones that we'd love the opportunity to be your law firm, and we'll continue to talk about them on the show as we go forward with regard to everything out there is where we are. But, yeah, we appreciate it. Auto insurance myths. I thought this was an interesting, search when I looked it up over the weekend. In myth number 1, color determines the price of auto insurance. The color of your car, true or false?
I think it used to be true, huh?
It's false. It is now false. It used to. I guess apparently it used to be. It doesn't matter whether your car is arrest me red or hide in plain sight white. The color does not factor into your insurance costs.
Yeah,
So,
I remember growing up. I think just in my mind, even I was like, never buy a red car.
I've always heard they got more tickets than any other. Right. Red cars got ticketed at a higher percentage for speeding than any other car out there. So I thought that was interesting.
I would think, you think about that, most of the cars on the road are gray, black, or white.
Yeah.
So a red car stands out. So, it's easier to find that red car in speeding versus the other car. So maybe that's the reason.
Yeah, potentially. Your credit score has no effect on your insurance rate.
False.
Yeah, false.
I think it does.
It does. It absolutely does. So, insurance company does look at your credit score, which I thought was pretty interesting.
I guess the correlation being that if a better credit score equates to a better driver, more responsible driver. Is that what probably?
It does. It does.
I think they're more concerned about their payments, getting their money.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're a high risk and they're not going to get their monthly payments, they're probably going to charge you a different premium than someone who has a really good credit record that continues making payments.
Yep.
Would be my guess.
Yep. Another myth here. If another person drives your car in the event of an accident, his or her auto insurance will cover the damages.
That's false.
That is false. Insurance, we talk about that all the time. Insurance follows the vehicle, so not the driver. So Michael's driving my car and gets in an accident, my insurance will apply. I'm driving Richard's car and getting in an accident, Richard's insurance applies, is how that works out, which is interesting because most people think it's going to apply to the driver, but that insurance follows the vehicle, is how that works out. So that's something really, really important to know with regard to an accident. It says one thing is here. It says also, I have 30 days to notify my insurance company when I buy a new car. The myth here says
I
it's
think that's
true.
Subject to each contract.
Yeah.
Everybody has a different time frame.
Yeah, online it says typically it's 2 weeks. You typically have 2 weeks to tell your insurance company about a newly acquired vehicle. And the key is do it, because if you may get prices could go down on your insurance policy. Yeah, they may go up depending on what you buy, but you definitely want to be able to, inform your insurance company. And this is what I love, because we hear this one on a daily basis. I don't have to worry because I have full coverage. What would you say to that, Richard, when we get those calls and the person's like, I've got full coverage?
Well, they don't know what they have sometimes.
Yep.
They think they have full coverage, and then we go through it, and then they go, wait a minute, I didn't get a rental car coverage.
Mm-hmm.
I know I don't have uninsured motorist coverage. Or we may go through, do you have any med pay? No, I don't have any med pay.
Yep.
So med pay, full coverage would be everything. It would be rental car, comprehensive, liability, uninsured motorist, med pay.
Towing, collision, all that. It could
towing,
be,
collision,
You could have like a dozen coverages if you wanted. Yep. So, and the key is it's a cafeteria plan. That's the best way I've heard you describe it over the years, Richard, is the only required coverage in Mississippi is liability coverage. That's what the law says. You have to carry $25,000/$50,000 in liability coverage. Everything else on top of that is going to, be your choice. Now, the big key is if you choose not to select uninsured motorist, which would be a terrible decision, is you have to sign a waiver. Like, the insurance company has a specific waiver that's been approved by the Mississippi Department of Insurance, and you actually have to acknowledge that you are waiving your right to purchase at that time uninsured, which is also the same as underinsured motorist coverage on cases. And there have been times where we reach out to an insurance company and say, hey, we're trying to open up a UM claim, and they're like, oh, they don't have it. And we go, show us the signed waiver. And guess what? They can't produce the signed waiver, which means that person has coverage, is how that works. So really, really important to know your coverages, because we hear it day in and day out that people are like, I have full coverage, and they have no idea what they have, which is crazy.
I just couldn't imagine not having UM coverage. Especially in Mississippi.
Yep.
I mean, I don't know if the stats still are what they used to be, but lots of people know coverage.
Yep.
Our mandatory limits that we have to have are so low. Mm-hmm. If you get in a car wreck with somebody else, I mean, $25,000, is that going to be enough?
No.
Most likely not.
Nope, not at all.
So,
yeah, UM coverage is important. Mississippi and Florida battle 1 and 2 for the most uninsured drivers in the country. Well, you are listening to the Richard Schwartz and Associates Injury Lawyers Legal Power Hour, and Schwartz and Associates Injury Lawyers Legal Power Hour as we get to the fourth and final segment. And boy, y'all have blown up the C Spire text line at 601-879-4395. So Tim texted in and said, and I'm going to disagree with you, Tim, because you said you don't have to add a minor until they have an accident. The car is covered. If you do a search, and this is from somebody who had to add a 16-year-old to their insurance policy within the last 3 weeks, my insurance carrier required that I add my daughter when she got her license. Now, she got her permit. I called the insurance company. They're like, congratulations, she got a permit. The rates don't go up. But once she got her license, I had to add her as a listed driver in my household. And most insurance policies have that rule that you have to list all licensed drivers within your household. So something to remember out there. All right, great question from Mike here. Says, if I'm driving a friend's vehicle and I'm hit by an uninsured driver, does my friend's uninsured motorist coverage protect me? Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
The uninsured motorist, it's insurance on the vehicle.
Yep.
So if you have anybody in your household with uninsured motorists, you can stack those policies as well, any family member.
Yeah, and then he asked a good follow-up, Richard. He said, also, if my friend only has limited UM, i.e. carried the $25,000 policy, does his own UM coverage protect him for any excess damages? So could Mike's own policy then kick in, because the friend only had one car with nope. So
not unless you're a resident household member. Now, we did find an exception at one time. What was that? My memory banks, Mark found it or something. There was a law about how you're coded as a driver.
Yeah, I think the insurance companies.
Different.
It was, and insurance companies have gotten great about policies and making sure the language protects the insurance company versus protecting their insured. They're trying to limit their liability as much as possible. Had a text in this is a terrible situation, had a parent that was prescribed some medication while under the care of an assisted living facility in a behavioral health center. The medication warning label listed some of the conditions: stroke, type 2 diabetes, blood pressure that their parent had. So they went from a functioning elderly person to bedridden in a matter of days and ultimately passed away 90 days later. Could this be malpractice? Potentially. It absolutely potentially could be.
Yeah,
so you could call us. I know you're in North Mississippi, so call us at 662-988-8888. Medical malpractice cases, very challenging, very intensive, is looking at what's in the records and so forth. But there potentially could be a claim out there for sure. Also, someone asking if we're still taking the PFAS water cases, Richard. So are we still?
Yes, of course we are.
Yep.
Yeah, those cases are still very viable. If you have the 4 cancers, I can't remember them all.
Yeah, I'd have to.
Liver, kidney, basically things you drink in the water, colon, and things like that, where, yes, they absolutely, those are going to be really valuable cases. I think the companies are going to settle those cases at some point. I don't think they're going to litigate them. I think the liability is too strong.
Yep. Again, so just call the office, 601 or 662-988-8888, and we'll get the information. And then, again, we're going to do the investigation into your medical records and so forth to see if you have one of the qualifying cancers, which is a terrible way to say it, but one of the cancers that are the four. And then also, is your water system one that is polluted? About 45% of the water systems in the United States have a higher threshold than they should with regard to these PFAS chemicals, which are also known as forever chemicals. Great question here, because I think about this all the time. When I rent a vehicle, they always ask if I want their insurance or should I use mine. What do you say?
The only thing, I have insurance, so your insurance usually will cover a rental car, and you need to call your agent to make certain. But I always get dent waiver, because how many times you have to go in and they argue with you, oh, you caused this damage to the vehicle. No, I didn't. But I bought dent waiver anyway, so I do that as an extra protection. But your insurance will cover your car, generally.
And the other thing you should do, it's interesting because I remember years ago when I used to rent them, they'd walk around and we're writing down every scratch. They don't do that anymore. It's like, here are the keys, go.
No.
So I would encourage you to walk around that car when you first get it with a video so it has the date and time stamp as to what condition it was in, because they're not as detail-oriented now with regard to you getting that car. So that way you have proof to say, hey, that dent was already there, or that scratch was already there when I picked the car up at 9:12 a.m. on February 4th or whatever it may be. Because, again, the proof is in the pudding. So you've always got to make sure you've dotted your I's and crossed your T's. So that's really, really important. But that's a great question. All right, we got 30 seconds left. Quick trivia question for you and Michael, not music, because clearly Michael would destroy you on that, Richard. So it would be, what is the most common surname in the United States?
Smith.
Ooh.
Michael says Smith. What do you say, Richard?
Jones.
Michael is just on fire today. Is the most common surname in the United States is Smith. But, hey, if you need us, you can always call us at the firm, 601 or 662-988-8888. We hope you have a safe and healthy